In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use the website astro-seek.com to pull up transits that are going to be happening for you, the big ones over the next coming years. And first of all, I'm going to include a link to AstroSeek in the YouTube video so you can pull that up really easily. When I talk about the big ones, I mean transits from the outer planets. Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, sometimes Saturn and Jupiter as well, to our personal planets and points in our chart. The personal planets are the Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, and Mars. And then the points that are important are the ascendant and the descendant and the midheaven, as well as the imum coli. And I should mention that there are other great websites that you can pull this data up on. I like astroseek.com because it's free and also because it has extra information if you're somebody who practices traditional and Hellenistic astrology like I do. But another website that's excellent is astro.com. And one of the great things about astro.com is it has birth data for a number of famous or important people, and it has a rating system that can let you know how accurate those charts are. If it's a AA chart, you know they have the birth chart in hand, and so we're going to know that the ascendant degree is correct because they have the correct birth time. If it's an X-rated chart, not so much, and you can't rely on that chart to know where the houses are, where the ascendant is, etc. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead. And the one thing I should say about this video is it's for people who already have an astroseek.com account. If you don't have that yet, there's another video I did that shows you how to set up that account. And I'll drop that in the video as well so that you can maybe do that first before you continue with this. So let's pull up the AstroSeek website. And here we're going to see that I already have my account in here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take you step by step. And I'm going to try and go slowly enough that you can track this as you are watching the YouTube video. You can maybe use AstroSeek at the same time because that I found that's very useful when people do that in YouTube videos. So we're going to see at the top, we have all these different bars, and we're going to go to the free horoscopes on the left. And under here, we're going to pick Transit Chart Calculator. I want to point out there are other options. I'm going to press on this in a minute, but I do want to point out that you can also pull up secondary progressions, which is a useful type of chart that shows you the symbolic evolution of your personality over time. And I did a video, a YouTube video, where I used Martin Luther King's progressed chart in combination with something called the Sabian symbols to sort of show how his path as a spiritual leader evolved over time. I'm going to include a link to that below in case you're interested in your progressed chart. Then another thing that you can look at is a synastry, composite, and Davison chart. Those are relationship charts where you put your chart next to another person's chart, like a partner, and either they're next to each other or they blend it. When they're next to each other, you can see how your charts relate to each other. When you blend the two charts, that becomes a relationship or a chart of the relationship itself, and it can tell you about the personality of the relationship. I have another YouTube video where I talk about relationship charts, and I'll include that in the link as well. And then you can play around with the synastry charts if you like. It can be kind of interesting and fun if you want to deepen your understanding of astrology. And then, of course, there's so much more here, right? But let's go to the transit chart calculator for now. And here we see, again, all kinds of options for different things you can look at. But today, to focus on these outer planet transits to our personal planets, we're going to look at the personal transit calendar. And you go ahead and pull that up. And then one of the things you're going to want to do if you're one of my students is you're going to want to switch the house system from Placidus, which is the system used by most modern astrologers, to whole sign houses, which is the system we're using. And then you're going to go ahead and sit here for a minute and take a deep breath, which I have to do because I move really quickly. I've got Mars ruling my chart. And so now we're going to see, okay, what are our options here? What it's going to show you here is you can pick transits from all the planets. That would be every time the moon hits one of the planets in your chart, it's going to pull all those transits up. And you know, the moon moves through the sky every 2.5 days, it changes the house. So we don't want the moon here. We're going to have so much data, we're going to be confused. What we're going to focus on is the outer planets because they move slowly and have the biggest impact on our lives. And so today we're going to cover transits from Pluto and Uranus and Neptune and a little bit Saturn and Jupiter to our personal planets, the Sun, the Moon, Venus, Mercury, and Mars. And those are going to bring up the biggest energies for us. But I also want to know, those are what I typically do in a reading when I do a reading for someone. But I also want to point out you could look at, and I do look at when I do readings, if any of those personal planets, Mars, Mercury, Venus, are in a retrograde phase, they tend to stay in a sign much longer than they typically do and can have a bigger impact on the chart. So I'll also add those in when I'm doing a reading, but for today, for the purposes of instruction and teaching, we're going to stick to those slower moving planets. So I'm going to go here, and instead of having all planets, I'm going to scroll down until I get to the, excuse me, I just have to change my screen for a second to make it a little bigger so that I can see everything. Just one second. There we go. So, whoops, except for I think that made it a lot smaller for y'all. Excuse me. So we're going to go down here and we see the planets. There we go. The scroll worked. We're going to start with Pluto because he moves the slowest of all the planets. And so we're going to say, Pluto, what aspects is he making? Now, under the aspects bar, you can see we have chosen all major. I'm going to leave that because the major aspects are the aspects they used in ancient Hellenistic times. They're the conjunction, the sextile, the square, the trine, and the opposition. There are other types of aspects that we haven't covered in class yet that sometimes I do use, which are minor aspects like the semi-sextile and the semi-square. I don't know why they call it oct here, but the quintile and so on. We're not going to use those today. That's just like an extra layer that in some ways really is not necessary, but sometimes can be fun to play around with as well. So anyway, we're going to leave it at the major aspects. And then for the planets, we have the option of honing in on particular planets or deciding we're going to look at the transits to all the planets. For Pluto, I'm going to look at the transits for all the planets as well as the angles. The angles in our chart are that ascendant, midheaven, imam coli, and descendant. So we're going to put on all planets and the angles. And we're going to see when Pluto, that god of transformation, is going to hit something in our chart and maybe bring or call us to make a big shift or sit with the ground sort of shaking beneath us and asking us to look at things in a deeper way. And then you can look at it by year. I believe this program actually is going to bring up multiple years. So it's from the date June 2025, right? And so then we're going to hit calculate. Ta-da! And here it is showing the major transits of Pluto, and look how far out it goes. And here we see, for example, this is my chart. Pluto is going to oppose my Venus, and we see here how many times that transit happens. If you've had a reading from me, you'll know that when I talk about transits from the outer planets to our inner planets, I liken it to the experience of a protagonist in a fairy tale where they have to go through something 3 times before they learn the lesson. And with the outer planets, they can hit our inner planets 1 time, 3 times, or 5 times. And the more times they hit, the more likely that transit is going to really be a major impact in their life. So for me, I'm looking that in 2027 to 2028, there's going to be some experience that I probably go through around relationships in my chart, because Venus is the planet of relationships. And then I might also look at what sign Venus rules and houses Venus rules in my chart. Venus rules Taurus and Libra, which are my 7th house and my 12th house. So when I'm thinking about this transit from Pluto to Venus, I'm thinking it's going to impact my one-on-one partnerships, and then some of that collective unconscious stuff of the 12th house. I might have a bit of transformation over that period of time. So there we see Pluto opposite Venus, and then it's going to hit some outer planets. These are important transits, but we might not feel them as much on a personal level. And then Pluto later is going to hit my oh, actually, this must not be my chart. Give me 1 second, because Pluto is, oh, it's squaring my descendant. Yes, it will square my descendant in 2040. Okay. I was thinking it was a conjunction. So you get the feel for what we're going to see when we bring this up. And so then we can go to the next planet, which is Neptune, and we can leave it at all major aspects. And then we're going to do all planets and angles. And actually, yep. And then we can calculate that. And then we're going to see when Neptune is having significant transits. And here we see Neptune is going to be trining Mars. And that actually already happened. And it's going to hit Mars again in November, and so on. And so again, we can use interpretation to work on this. If you're in the class that I'm teaching, I'm going to give you a couple of books as well as a website or two that you can use to understand the meaning of different transits, where authors like, oh, I'm forgetting his name, he wrote Planets in Youth. Here it is. Robert Hand did another book. It's called Planets in Transit. This is about the birth chart, but Planets in Transit will talk about all these transits of the major planets to the inner planets. And he's got some good interpretations, and there's some other folks as well. Of course, you don't need anybody else to make those interpretations if you understand the meaning of the different planets. Like if you know that Uranus brings sudden shifts and that Venus is about the planet of love and relationship and beauty, you might expect that when Uranus hits Venus, you might have a desire to break free around relationships or how you receive love in the world. So you don't need books to look it up, but when you're first starting out, having a book or a computer, a website to look at some of the interpretations can be really helpful. So I'll share that information in class. Let's see what else. So then we can do the same thing, right? We can go from Neptune to Uranus and see what's coming up for us when he's going to be hitting planets. You can see Uranus is hitting quite a few things for me over the next year. And again, I would just sort of play around with those ideas, the topics in my life, the topics meaning the houses it's going to affect, and so on, to get a feel for what's happening for me. And then you can go to Saturn. Now, Saturn and Jupiter move more quickly, so they're going to have a lot more aspects. And so here's where you need to differentiate and sort of pick out the ones that may have the biggest impact on you. And that's a little bit more of a skill or an art after you've practiced astrology a little bit. You'll begin to get a sense for which planets are more important for you in your chart. For example, in my chart, Saturn is opposite Mercury. And so Saturn Mercury contacts tend to have a bigger impact on me, because when we have an aspect in our birth chart and it's replicated by transit, we tend to feel it more than other people. So I might scroll down here and be curious about when Saturn's going to touch Mercury. And here he's touching Mercury in May of 2028. That's kind of far away. I'm not thinking that far ahead. It's just too much to take. So the other thing I might do is just look through and see the transits that are happening for me over the next year, and see what feels most significant. Like for me, Saturn trine Mars I kind of like the energy of when Saturn trines Mars because he Mars is our sort of our desire to move forward on something, and a trine is this lovely energy, and Saturn's about being responsible. So when Saturn trines Mars, we might find that we feel this push to move forward in a responsible way toward the thing that we want in the world, and so on. So I think that is everything. I'm going to stop the share. And that's a good start for you. Why don't you, if you're my students and you're in the class, give this a shot, see what you come up with. And when we do our question and answer session, we can chat more about what you found in your own chart. And otherwise, if you're not a student, but you're checking this video out, feel free to leave comments in the comments section with questions, and I'll answer what I can. And wishing you all the best. And yeah, take care.